Okay, I want to touch on some other large books of birds that are related to the Sandhill as well. And I've been chasing around after them since about 20 years ago. So some of these are fairly old, yeah, but I've always been curious about them. I'm not as experienced. I don't have a lot of academic knowledge about birds and sort of the details of them and so on so much. I appreciate how it looks and how they act and that sort of thing. So one thing that I think is interesting now is that everything that has to do with these birds has to do with current people and what they've done. And we'll see a number of things. For example, they would rest in Delta on the way up. So the farms make that available to them. And of course, Creamers is a place for them that they're used to going to. And then in the South, there were ways of keeping things open for them, where there's water and that sort of thing. So they've changed their behavior to fit, and they're part of what we do every year. I found a number of ducks and swans in Delta. I didn't see very many of the sandhills themselves. I think they go through, but it seemed to me that other species use more use of it. And this picture, for example, of the swans, this is of Delta. They spent a while there, a few days, and then they would move up to Fairbanks mostly. And it's interesting to watch them and how they relate to other birds. And this is the thing I chase them with. And this is a Creamers. And like I say, I've been doing that for 20 years or so. And I've had a presentation with eagles that I've done in this series. I don't know if anybody remembers that, but I have a lot of that. And I've also collected some things in southern California, pelicans and that sort of thing. And I'd be happy to do that too if people have an interest. There's something very elegant about these Sandhill cranes. There's a certain a real class to them, how they walk and how they stand and all that kind of thing. They do make a lot of noise though, and that's always interesting to hear all that. And they know each other very well. For example, a couple usually stays that way, and one of the things is that there are a lot of them that stay around here through the season, through the summer. They were often return to the same place that they've been for before. And then there are people around Fairbanks that have these birds settling down for a number of different years. And so they're kind of around them. And they allow humans to get much closer to where they are than other species would. They seem not to be particularly cared. I mean, you don't want to be right on top of them, but they allow you to come quite close. And it's wonderful to watch these guys, girls. It's they're quite they're big birds, and so they cruise a lot. They get an altitude and cruise, and they're very precise. Sometimes they're flying within a foot away from the ones they're working with, and it's interesting to see these birds working together. You know, they turn together, they climb together, and all the rest. And it doesn't seem to have any of the birds that are in charge of it. I mean, they don't do one doing something for everybody. I mean, when they move together, when they turn, they come down, and all the rest. And other the birds very often either sometimes they have the same kind of thing happening. For shore birds, you see masses of them all turning to one and so on. But here they will cruise, like I say, very close to each other, and just everything is done at the same. Yeah, they're wonderful to watch them flying. These guys.
The wings are different.
They're very really. It's really fun to watch these guys. One thing that they do very well is they can go to really impressive heights. They can get very high on cruise, and you can see them coming in. And then they do fly locally too, but they really are masterful of this. And they come in numbers. This is a creamers, and there was really a congregation of this. They usually go from here somewhere else, but there are some that stay around Fairbanks through the whole season, and so they gather to go south as well. They all come together. Some of the people who have the sandhills on their land, for example, watch them summer after summer, and just watch them. Watch they grow up, and they allow people to get reasonably close. I mean, not on top of them, but they are able to feel security enough. And there are some people who have taken pictures of them. I'd like to see some of that. So if somebody has the stuff to show them as the young ones grow, learn how to fly and all that kind of stuff. That they really are easy to get to for humans. And they're able to call it. They can aren't deterred too much with people. There are a lot of people in creamers, for example, like this, with it would be a school group trumping around, and then lots of people. They're always there, walking back and forth. It's often with dogs, and the Sandhills are okay with that. I mean, they don't, they get pretty close. I've got some pictures that I thought I brought in where they were standing right at the paths as people were going by. I think they feel safe, and they think this is a safe place. Now, another thing that I've discovered by watching these guys, that there's a thing going on between cranes and Canadian geese. I find that interesting.
Make it louder if you want.
Okay, I can hear it.
Okay, I can.
Okay. And they hang out together a lot when they land and so on. And I've seen them actually fly with the Sandhill cranes. To be one of or two of these geese right with the Sandhill, and it's interesting to me because there's no other species that seems to wants to fly with the Sandhills, but just this goose. This snow geese, for example, don't do it. And I'd like to know more about that as I kind of experience all this. But the swans are the heavies. They actually are the heaviest flying bird in North America, I believe so. I mean, I can't think of anything that's heavier. They're big birds, and they have a lot of power. One thing that it's interesting is when something that looks like it's dangerous flying up, and the ducks will just get the heck out of there. The swans just stay there because none of the other birds are going to mess with them at all. And it's really interesting to see them work out with others. And one of the things I think interesting is about the swans is that they can sleep all kinds of different ways, like this one, or like this, where they only have 1 foot down. They don't have much loss of heat that way. And of course, they have very long necks. And I have a number of pictures of them with getting the neck and their beaks all underwater. So all you see is the backs. I mean, they can really get low in the water to get whatever they're looking for. They're of course people have used them for something that it's they were at is something to help make parks be more interesting, and the these are not tamed, but there's some that are supposed to be. And there's we had an experience. I was in the
Cool.
we my wife and I were in Copenhagen. I think it was about 25 years ago or something like that. And we sat in a little park.
I'm
And
watching a Zoom program.
my wife had and so she had a little bit of food of bread, and there's a swan eating it. She ran out of bread, and then because she wasn't the bird decided that he wanted more, and she came after her, and my wife had to run away to get away from it. I thought that was interesting because they are so much used in these parks, and you find swans all over the place in parks and that sort of thing. They just live there because they're so engaging. Just watch them, but they're all over the place. I mean, they go pretty far. And of course, sometimes it's not easy for birds coming up. In this case, there's this Canadian goose doesn't do well on ice, and he would prefer water. But they come in when it's quite cold, actually, sometimes, and things are still frozen. It's a trick for them to come at the right time. And another thing about the Canadian geese is that they don't control. They always want to have things their own way. They're if something gets out, if the other birds get in the way, they come for them. This goose is chasing after people that are getting to other birds too close, and this one's chasing them away. I've never seen another one of those birds, other birds do quite that. And the swans stay around where we live here, and others go further north. But these swans, for example, were staying right around where we live. This was the just close to Fairbanks, and but they don't seem to go to the same place all the time. This place, for example, they're often not there at all, and sometimes they're in for the summer. These swans were down on the Chilkat River, and this was at the end of November, so things didn't froze up. That river is warm because of it gets the heat from down below, and so there are spots for them. and I've got pictures of a lot of pictures of eagles there, hundreds of them that get together. But the swans and the eagles tolerate each other. And I have some pictures I was thinking of adding, but I didn't have enough room for it. You can see the swans flying right in front of literally hundreds of eagles. As it happens, of course, that the chilcat is runs late, and the eagles want to get the salmon. Other places are frozen up, or the runs are gone, and so they all contact from all kinds of places. I've never seen there being any competition. I mean, they're often for different kinds of food, but they seem to tolerate each other. The geese, the swans, and the eagles. They just ignore each other. And I have some pictures of them flying right in front of dozens of eagles all at a while, just standing there looking at them on the ground and in the trees and whatever. And I wanted to see these birds coming up. This is on the Arctic plain. It's on the Dalton Road, and they are right near the road, very close to it, because that had melted, but further out everything was still have snow on it, so they didn't have a place to put for their nest yet. And just a day later, with the 24 hours of light, the resident of all the snow, it was melting like crazy, and then they were finding their nests. But right now, they're just waiting to be able to go to their nest. And as mentioned, you can imagine the Canadian geese are right there with them. They're kind of like allies. And these are greater white-fronted goose. They're really hardy goose, but they don't do that much with the swans. They're almost by themselves. And the same thing with the other big birds. They go to the same place. I think it's interesting to see these birds that are know how to work on their own, but they tolerate the other species without any problem. They basically get along just fine with each other. Now, going south, I was in Nebraska too, and the Platte River. The Platte River that is a very important waterway, because there aren't all that even long stretches of area that they don't have water like this. And this water is this Platte is very careful about water, because it's used all the way. There were reservoirs and irrigations and all kinds of things going on, but they made a deal. The people who were backing up the birds made sure there's enough water going down for them to be able to rest. So they can congregate in the Platte River. And now this is in the morning. That's why it's such a dark picture. they start moving around when they can see the light like this. And there are dozens of batches of the birds just like this, all over the place. A lot of these sandhills, and they start moving, and when at a certain time, they all kind of rise up, and then they scatter around to feed. And when it's evening, they had scattered around to get their food all over the place, and then they come together and fly together before they rest for the evening. So they're flying right at as the sun was starting to go down, but they really move in patches. And this is on the plat. There's this is a blind set up so people can see them. It's a rove sanctuary, and then the Sandhills come to sleep right in these things. And so people who want to see these birds as close, they go into a blind, and there's no light allowed. And there could be about 6 photographers that can be in there. And you just stay there and take pictures. You make sure you're no noise, no light whatsoever. And then after a few hours in the dark, we go out and out the back ways and on a trail, and they have not even flashlights on, and it seems to work. These birds are just fine right ahead of the line. What happened is that the Audubon row at the initial of the row sanctuary went to the Audubon, and farmers had gave it to them. There was the farmer died. His wife donated it to the Audubon. One thing about this part of the world is that there are fences every place, except right on the river. But there's no extra space, generally speaking, and so it's hard to people and so on. They were running the operation in terms of the pharmacy. So what they've done is they made arrangements with the local farmers that they would not plow the land yet until these birds are through picking up what's left on the ground. So this is what they do. They scatter and pick up things at the field, corn and other things that are growing out there. Once they move on, then the farmers plow up the fields. And like you can see here, that they scatter all over the place, and then in the evening, all come together again in the air before they land. There are also some birds that you don't see up here either. They really are turkeys down there. And here we are with a batch of the turkeys crossing the road, and the cars were stopped to let them go through. And turkeys can fly, sort of, so they will fly when they need to. And then Bosque del Apache. It's a little south of Sonora, and in New Mexico. And I was down there just before Thanksgiving. The Rio Library river is quite close, and that provides water for these birds to be able to have a place to go. And this is the one of the national wildlife refuges. And one thing is interesting to see how many there are. They keep a record of every day of what kind of birds there are and how many. So you can see that there aren't very many Canadian geese. A whole bunch of new snow geese, even more ducks, and then a fair number of cranes, 13,000. And they take account, the people who are running this make a new count every day. And this is in just a couple days before Thanksgiving. And there's a conglomeration of birds. Lots and lots of ducks, and you can see that they max with the sandhills right together with each other. And what you see here is just one side. If you turn to this is looking west, and turn north, there are other batches just like this. I mean, there are lots of birds. As it happens, the actual sandhill cranes that come to us mostly spend the winter in Texas, not New Mexico, and but this particular year there was a drought in Texas, and things were dried up, and so there was some of our stuff. It came here instead of being in Texas. And these are snow geese. There are lots and lots of them, and they're not as orderly as the other birds. Pretty much, there's a mass flying around, and they don't have the organization that the sandhills do, and even the Canadian geese. But you can see there are sandhills right next to all these other kinds of birds. Snow geese right in this area, but then in other places, lots of ducks. But they have dances. Sometimes they're actually they apparently are fighting each other a bit. Other times they seem to be just plain dancing. And they make a lot of noise while they're doing this, by the way. They're not hiding. and they stay together, and it's really something to watch them. But they when they fly, they're always in a form when they fly, and as I mentioned before, these birds fly in tandem, and it doesn't seem like one or another bird has its charge. I mean, it's not, they don't have someone who's in charge, but they seem to have one mind when they fly. I mean, sometimes they're flying inches from each other. Those big wings right next to each other. It's really interesting to watch that. The more it's kind of like a dance, and some of them apparently seem like they might be in combat of some sort. You know, which one was doing the best, and others it just seems to be fun. It's hard to tell. They never hurt each other that I've seen. The eagles, when there were lots of them, they're a little more competitive. They do fight each other, and they have to be careful because they really can hurt each other. The beak and the tannins, so they have to be pretty careful not to do in their companions. And this is odd. I'm not quite sure precisely what this hawk is. This looks like maybe 3 different kinds of hawks that look very much like this, and I'm not sure which it is. But this hawk was hanging around for half an hour, going really close to these sandhills, and I'm not sure what the heck it was doing. I mean, I think he was hunting for something right close to him, but I could never really find out why. And this bird was flying about half an hour, buzzing around, and the grandhills didn't seem to care particularly. They tolerized it. I mean, it just keep flying around. And this gives an idea of what the land looks like in November in New Mexico. Just a few miles from here are the sand areas that the military experiences with rockets and all that kind of stuff, and then the white sands are really close too. But what keeps them going here is that this is in the valley with the Rio River, and that supplies the water and everything else to keep it this. And the local farmers use the water for their grains and that sort of thing. But as soon as you get out of that area, so if you went a number of miles in the air to the east, you'd be in the sand dunes. You go the other way, and you have the forests for New Mexico. It seems just to be a patch of a difference right there. And here's a coyote who's pantsing back and forth. He'd like to get a sandhill alone, but hardly ever, it never gets there. And so these birds always stay around water because I think with the coyote goes through the water and try to get him, he doesn't have much luck. If he was on ground, he would. So the sandhills usually are around water if they can. It's in this situation, and there are a bunch of them together, so the coyote doesn't have much help. And the birds in general wanted to be in the water because they're safer that way, a whole bunch of them together. And so there are ducks and geese and in the sandhills all together in the ponds. And then they fly just before it gets dark. And so I have several silhouettes that I've done. I really like them when they're dark and they all the silhouette. I think it's a great thing. But they usually get in formats, forms, and they fly for a while before they land and go to sleep. That they all gather each other is what I think they do mostly. They start flying, and the rest of them pick up, and they all get together, and so they will land in the same place when they spent the night. But you can see them, and you see the mountains further on. And let's see if I can get this to work. This is a bunch of a mix of birds here, and this is waking them up in the morning. Okay, so that's it. Any comments or whatever?
Well, I would just like to say thank you for sharing this really beautiful photography. Did you, what kind of camera do you have, and how do you get the photos that are so, like if you have a crane flying across the sky, I'm impressed you can get something so crisp and focused. How do you do that?
I practiced a lot. I use Canons right now. I started using Leicas, but they didn't keep up. If they keep coming out with a new one that can do things that the old ones can't, but it takes a lot of time to do that, to pull that off. But that's what I was there to do. I've done the same thing with San Diego, in the southern California, and I have a collection of pelicans and other birds like that that I could give something like this. And I've done the eagles that I spent even more time on that I've gotten in the southeast and on the Kenai, and I've had that here in this series. I'd be happy to do it again if people want to. But I have a lot of eagles, and they're and what they do and how they deal with each other, which is interesting because they can easily kill each other. They've got the beaks and their tail ends and all the rest of it, but they just come short of actually doing the other damage. Even they have all the equipment to rip things up. And I've got a lot of pictures of them fishing, swooping down, grabbing a fish and pull it out and that sort of thing. So I'm open to doing it again if people want.
Thanks.
Do the cranes nest in the grass?
What's that?
Do the cranes nest in the grass?
No,
By the
well,
river?
you know, they like to being close to water. I think they can see thinking coming, but they generally sleep on the dry spots, like a part of an island or some sand or something like that, just to protect themselves. But they don't sleep all the time at all in the water, but they can if they think it's dangerous.
Did you learn photography as an art in terms of on film camera first and then transition to digital, or did you learn it with digital? Okay.
Yes, I published my first pictures that I was printed was in 1959, and I've been taking pictures ever since then. I was on the staff of the Minnesota Daily, which is part of the University of Minnesota.
Oh, wow.
And we had a daily number of people to get out every day, 5 times a year. I mean, a week. And there were 44,000 we got out every day. So it was really interesting doing that. And then I've spent some time in Europe. It's a graduate student, and I was taking pictures so I could use them when I was teaching, because I noticed that people in the Midwest, the students, for example, really didn't know what things looked like in Europe and the history of man. So I was doing that. And then I also, my research has to do with historical maps, and I've published in that area. I was in charge of the microfilm from the Rasmussen Library for a while, and digitized items that requires some of that kind of knowledge. So I did that. So that's kind of my history.
Nice.
I have to tell you my story of cranes. We've had cranes at our house for over 20 years. And we're on top of a hill with valley to the north and valley to the south. And we have nesting cranes in both valleys, but they come to drink some water out of a pan that I furnish.
Hmm.
And also to eat some barley seed. But what they really like to do is dance in front of our lower level windows and bang on the windows because they see their reflection.
Oh,
And then sometimes they'll stay overnight right in front of the windows and sleep. So by the 28th of August, they're gone. So I'm
Uh-huh.
eagerly awaiting them again.
hmm.
That's great.